Hello, my love, and welcome back to the Energy Expansion Podcast. I'm not sure if I've ever walked you through my process for getting to this point, like getting in front of the mic and recording an episode. But the gist of it is I have this ongoing list in the form of a Google Doc of, let me see, it's in front of me right now. How many pages is it? It's 7 pages right now. It grows longer and longer every week, and I'm adding different ideas and things that are inspiring me and questions that people are asking me. And more often than not, what will happen is I'll get in front of this list when it's time to record, and I'll be like, no, thanks. And something completely different, like off the wall, still super relevant. And the podcast is doing really well. And I'm so excited about that. And thank you. Yes, you listening right now for being a part of that. But what ends up happening is this like totally new idea will come through. And that's what happened today. And it's so funny because as soon as I thought about this idea dropped in and I was like, oh, that's so good, because I have never actually talked about this particular journey that I've been on when it comes to growth and healing and expansion and up-leveling, all of that and everything that goes into that. I've never talked about this before, but there's that, I want to say that old song, nobody get offended. I don't know who it's by, but I feel like we all know the tune, and it's a song, maybe it's just called Money, and it's like, money, 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 money. Okay, I promise to never sing like that ever again. But so where we're going with this is I want to walk you through the investments that I've made in my business and, more importantly, in myself. And I feel like this is important because I don't think that a lot of people realize, for me or for other teachers, healers, entrepreneurs, how much goes on behind the scenes, like who I am today, the work that I do, what I've created personally and professionally. None of it happened by accident. It is something that it's a journey that I've been on for a really long time. And there has been so much that has gone into this. And I want to bring you into that. So, and this is also a question that people will ask me often, specifically around like, how do you become a coach and coaching certification? So I'm going to chat about a couple of those. I'm certified in a handful of different things. There's going to be some brands and companies that I mention. There's going to be other ones that I intentionally don't mention. The majority of the investments that I've made in myself and in my business, I'm really, really grateful for. In fact, I'll say that I'm grateful for every investment I've ever made, even the ones that I looked back and was like, did I really need that? Or maybe the investments that I felt like were a mistake. Why am I grateful for those? Because even the painful lessons are lessons, and learning lessons in whatever way you learn them is worth something that is of value. So I've either walked away with something truly extraordinary that has helped propel me and my business and my leadership and maybe my health, aspects of my personal life to a new level, or I've walked away with some lessons and I've made some mistakes that I will now never make again. So there's that. Heading into this conversation, I have this list, and to be honest, it's a relatively long list. I'm going to move through some of these a little faster than others. There's a few where I'm going to pause and bring you into the journey and maybe why I made that investment or what was coming up for me around that, or maybe some of the hard lessons that I learned as well. But before we do that, I wanted to share with you some of my thoughts about this. When I first started my business, now almost 13 years ago, the thought of investing in myself, whether it be on a personal or a professional level, I want to pause there. It's really interesting because there's always been some part of me that could really easily get behind making an investment in my business or in my career. And I think that's really common. Why? Because when we're investing in our business or in our career, that's essentially our livelihood, right? The thing that makes us a living, the area of our life where we make money. So investing in that can feel a little bit less risky and a little bit more desirable because there is often, not all the time, but there can be pretty clear ROIs. ROI is return on investment. For instance, if I invest in a program that's going to teach me how to get more, I call them dreamy AF soul aligned clients. If they're not a dreamy AF soul aligned client, I'll send them somewhere else. I don't want it because that doesn't work for you. It doesn't work for me. I only say yes and welcome in the dreamiest, most soul aligned clients into the business. And that's a standard, and it has been a standard for years. And so if that's not your standard, go ahead and borrow that. But if I'm signing up for a program that's going to help me welcome in, attract more, sign more, receive more yeses from the people who I want to serve, and that program is $5,000, okay? So I invest $5,000, and if my signature program, which depending on what level you join at, like 5K is right about right. That means I invest in this program, and if I get one person, which I'm confident I get one person to sign up for my course as a result of that, I will have made my money back. I will have made my return on investment. And so there are moments and certain investments where it's like, it's a no-brainer. Even like I'm throwing around numbers here, a little bit random, but also not that far off, pretty accurate. I've invested that tens of times. We're going to go through, I'm going to like rattle off some. I don't remember the exact price point of every investment I've ever made, but I'll rattle them off to you just so like you can see the game at which I'm playing, the level of belief that I have in myself. And that's important to note because if you don't believe in yourself, you're not going to be able to invest in yourself. All of that being said, I feel like business and professional investments can sometimes feel easier and less risky than investing in something that's intangible. What does intangible mean? Intangible is honestly a big layer and a portion of the work that I do, that I teach. Energetics, mindset, identity work, really looking at what's happening in your internal reality, because when you have the awareness, mindset, energetics, neuro-linguistic programming, mindset, energetics, identity work, rewiring your entire belief system. There are so many of these pieces that I'm most passionate about that are a bit more intangible, meaning we're working with the inner landscape of the individual. And although it's intangible, I will die on the hill. And I so strongly believe that that is actually the most important work we could ever do. Why? Put super simply, in like the most simple terms, your external reality is a mirror of your inner landscape. And so I've invested tons of money in strategy. I've actually invested more money in the inner work, in the mindset mastery, in the energetics, in speaking of mastery, in mastering my craft. And I am really grateful for those choices. I want to say about 25%. This is big, fam, as I say this out loud. I've never thought about it in this way. 25% of the six figures that I've invested over the last decade or more has been in strategy. The other 75% has been around energy and mindset mastery. And I am really grateful that I followed my intuition on each and every one of those decisions. So coming back to this, my thoughts around investments is I really truly believe that you are the greatest investment you could ever make. Let that land. I believe that the best investment, the best thing you could ever invest in is yourself. There is a quote, I think it's a Beyonce quote, and it's something along the lines, an investment in you is you really betting on yourself. And so when I first started my business, which is when I started investing in myself at a really high level. But I want to pause there because you don't need to be a business owner. Like, that's not the only reason you invest in yourself at this point. I've invested in several different health programs. I've invested in my health that like literally have nothing to do directly with my business, but I'm smart enough to know that as my health increases, my wealth increases. I'm smart enough to know, and I've learned over the years, that you're only able to up-level a particular area of your life at the same rate that you're working on and healing and expanding in and up-leveling the other areas of your life as well. I'm curious how that feels, if that feels true for you. And so at this point, I've invested in programs to support me around health, physical, mental, emotional, energetic, spiritual. I've invested in programs to support me as a mom, as a wife, as a leader, as a person, like courses that have to do with self-love and embodiment. And then again, I kind of led with things directly related to business. So I wanted to pause there because this conversation literally applies to every single human being on the planet. You betting on you is the greatest bet you'll ever make. I believe that more than I probably believe anything else. And you have to believe that for yourself as well in order for that to be the case. So I believe that you are the greatest thing you could ever invest in. I don't necessarily believe in the saying, you have to spend money to make money. I know that floats around. And again, that is, I think, something like a rhetoric that we hear often in the business space, in the entrepreneurial space, that if you want to make money, you've got to spend money. Or if you want someone to pay you X amount of dollars, then you have to be willing to invest that or more. I don't think that's like 100% of the time. That has to be the truth. But if you have never, this feels big for some of our like beginners in the entrepreneurial space or aspiring business owners. If you have never been willing to bet on yourself, to invest in yourself, and you have to invest like $50,000, you don't have to invest, $5,000 or $10,000. But if you are wanting to charge a few $1,000s for your services, but you haven't yet been willing to bet on yourself in that same way, there's something to look at there. There's an energetic mismatch. Are you with me? If you're not willing to bet on yourself, if you're not willing to go all in on yourself in some area of your life, hopefully every area of your life, but then you're expecting someone to go all in on themselves through hiring you, there's a disconnect there. So that's that. The last thing that I wanted to share is the reason I love investing in myself is because every time I do, I get to meet a new version of myself. When you put your money where your mouth is, you show up. At least, maybe you don't. I hope you do. I do. I get to meet a version of myself that I didn't even knew existed because I take my investments very, very seriously. It's actually so interesting, the energy of making an investment, because what I have seen happen time and time again for myself, I've personally had this experience, but I've seen it happen with more of my own clients over the years than I can count, and also like peers and business besties of mine. There's a transformation. There's an energetic shift that happens the minute you say yes to yourself. So let's say you're signing up for some sort of like 6-month transformational program. Of course, ideally, at the end of that 6 months, when you're crossing the finish line of the program, you will have transformed in at least one way, if not more than one way. You will have experienced a shift. But what often happens is the transformation begins the minute you say yes, the minute you make that investment. And it's so cool to get to experience that. It's like this instant up level because you start to realize who it is that you have to become, what it is that's required of you. And it makes it like that yes to yourself. In my experience, it makes it so much easier and faster to step into what it is that you desire and who it is that you know you're being called to step into next. So now, without further ado, we are going to take a little trip down DKC investment memory lane. I'm giggling to myself because I made a list pretty quickly of all of the noteworthy investments that I've made that I can remember off the top of my head. And I am absolutely certain that I'm forgetting some. I'm definitely forgetting some of the smaller ones. And there is a chance that there's some big glaring ones, like multiple 4 and 5 figure investments, maybe a mastermind or a coaching program here or there that I'm just going to forget to mention. But the ones that I remember, there's a list of 20 of them. So we'll spend a few minutes. Other ones I'm just going to kind of rattle off because I don't got all day and you don't got all day. But if you're like most people in my life and my world, you're really curious about what were the learnings, the teachings, the different types of education and experience that went into creating the DKC brand and the version of Dani that you now know today. So it actually started with a company. Shout out if you know what I'm talking about. And people have massively mixed reviews, but I'm a raving fan. So it all starts with a not so little company. This company is worldwide and it's known as Landmark. Landmark, a curriculum for living. And now the interesting thing, this feels a little bit like a cheat code here. I didn't make this initial investment in myself. When I really sat down to look at the different things that I've poured myself into, people, places, teachings, curriculum like this one that I learned from, Landmark was the first one that came to mind. So Landmark is, again, I might have already said it, but Landmark is known as a curriculum for living. So that means it applies to literally everybody. But the principles that they teach over their initial 3 days are so profound. They are incredibly life-changing. And because of that, there are lots of companies that send their leadership teams to Landmark because it can give you a new way of looking at the world, a new way of communicating, a new way of, doing so many things, including powerfully leading yourself and others. There are tons of brands, and I'm blanking on a lot of them, but one big brand that you've heard of, I'm sure, is Lululemon, the company that makes fancy kind of bougie athleisure wear, athletic wear. I'm sure you're picking up what I'm putting down. They send a lot of their higher up leadership to Landmark. And there was a man who I was working for a really long time. One of my greatest mentors in this lifetime, his name is Misha. He's a really incredible serial entrepreneur. And he owned it's like a larger franchise here in Southern California. And he was a franchisee who owned a handful of different spas and salons. And I was our district manager. And he had gone through Landmark and he had experienced such great results that he wanted to send me and a few of the other people on our leadership team to have this experience. So I am forever grateful that he invested in this life-changing leadership program for me. And I'm forever grateful that he trusted me enough and believed in me enough to send me to a program. It wasn't required by any means, but he loved it and he had a feeling I would, and he was right. And so that was like an $800 investment. I don't know what it is now. And that was, 14 or 15 years ago. I absolutely loved it. I highly recommend it. And if you're going to go through any of the Landmark curriculum, everybody starts with a program called the Landmark Forum, and it's a 3-day experience, and it's 10 hours a day. So in the span of 3 days, it's 30 hours of curriculum and learning and journaling and sharing, and it's amazing. So that was what he paid for, was that training. And I loved it so much that I decided to continue investing in myself, I went on to do their next level, which is known as the advanced course. If you're really in the landmark world, then you know that their third level, and I think that's kind of where it stops, is Landmark SELP, which stands for Self-Expression and Leadership Program. Nailed it. There are some huge movements, like worldwide movements, that were born out of the Landmark SELP program. So I didn't end up completing that one, but I personally invested in sending myself through the advanced course. And then they have something known as seminars, and they're like shorter, like you attend once a week for 4 weeks or 6 weeks or 8 weeks. And I put myself through several of those. And that's honestly what opened up my eyes to the world of coaching. I did not know, like the very first time I ever met anybody who was a coach, like for a living, whose career that was a woman that I met at Landmark. And it would be several years until I decided to start my own business. There were changes happening within that company that I was working for and working with, and also some huge changes in my life. The biggest change being that I'd become a mom. And so it was actually a really beautiful time. Like it just made sense both for the company and for me, for us to lovingly just separate and part ways. And it worked out really, really beautifully. But when that happened, there was that seed planted, and all of the amazing things that I had learned through Landmark and the coach that I had met there. And I knew instantly that that was a path that I wanted to pursue. And so I did. So then I went on to get my very first coaching certification, my first of many. And at the beginning of the episode, I'm pretty sure that I mentioned that there were going to be some companies, some names, some organizations, some people that I would mention, and then others that I was not going to mention. Nothing here is bad or wrong, but there are some brands that I just don't stand by and I don't recommend to people. And the very first coaching certification that I got, so technically my title was as a life and career coach. That was what I got certified in over the span of 6 months. And it was okay. It's just not anything that I recommend to my people, because knowing what I know now, there's so many other better options. There's so many other places to invest your resources if you want to become a coach. And I'm going to share those with you in a little bit, because right now what we're doing is, as I made this list of investments, we're going through chronological order. And literally, as I'm sharing these things with you, I'm going to tally up my total and we'll see where we'll go. So Landmark was an investment, a bet that my mentor, he bet on me. And I feel like that worked out really well for him and his company, because I was able to use and infuse so much of what I learned into that company I was working with for several years. And then I continued to invest in myself because I saw the power of the work. And that really changed the trajectory of my life forever. Again, I am so incredibly grateful, and I'm a huge advocate of this work. I think that if everybody had the concepts, the distinction, and the language that you walk away with from Landmark, oh my goodness, the world would be just such a better place and people would be so much happier. So there's that. Then I went on, like I mentioned, I got my first of many life coaching certifications. I want to say that was somewhere in the realm of $3 to $4K. And it was a 6-month program. I got certified as a life and career coach. I had my certification and I thought to myself, okay, certification here. Where are all the clients? Where are all the people? And cute, silly little Dani, it didn't dawn on me that I would have to have some marketing strategies. I'd have to put myself out there, that I was going to have to build a business. I don't know. I just thought if I had a coaching certification, there would be a line of dreamy clients at my doorstep. Newsflash, if that's what you think is going to happen, you're probably wrong, because I was. I hope you're not. I hope that there's some other magical thing that you have going on, and that there is an endless supply of dreamy people who are chomping at the bit to pay you. And that was when I realized, okay, I need to learn something about business. So at the time, you have to remember, this is 12, 13 years ago. And so the coaching industry, which is the industry that I'm in, is very different. It was very different back then. And even just the online landscape of how people did business on the internet was very different. And there was a woman, gosh, I have no idea how I found her. I'm going to say it like it probably had to be via Facebook because Instagram wasn't a thing. There were not really any other social media platforms. MySpace, I think, had already fizzled out. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I just said MySpace. That's crazy. Some of you, if you're much younger than me listening to this, are going to be like, what's MySpace? But I have a feeling a lot of you are going to be like, oh yeah, the good old days. So I'm sure I found her somewhere on Facebook, and it was a woman hosting a masterclass. And it was like 7 steps to build a profitable business. And it had aspects of speaking to people specifically who were coaches. And it was also faith-based, which is so interesting because if you've been listening for any length of time, you know how big of a deal faith is for me and how important and like near and dear to my heart, my relationship with faith, my relationship with God, my relationship with Jesus, like all of this means a lot to me. And it has for some time, but it's not something that I've led with in business since the beginning. And so I do think it's really interesting that the first official business coaching program I signed up for was a faith-based one. And I signed up for this masterclass. I'm like, guys, I'm the dreamiest. I want to say I'm the dreamiest consumer because if I see it, I like it, I want it, I'm going to find a way to make it happen. I think that can also connect back to my human design. I'm a 1-3 sacral manifesting generator. So we're just like go and jump and leap and do the thing. Gosh, if every consumer was like me, we would all be making so much money. There would just be like this insane flow of currency all of the freaking time. And so I signed up for this free masterclass. I loved what this woman had to say. I took a leap and I wanted to bet on myself, and I invested in my first ever business coaching program. There's different types of coaching models, and I teach this. I'm well versed at this. I've done and hosted courses in a lot of different ways. This was what was known as a hybrid model. So it was a blend of group coaching, but there was also one-on-one coaching woven in as well. And so I signed up for this program as I was kind of fading out of my job. I think I had used one of my very last paychecks from my corporate career to pay for this program. And it was in the realm of, again, I want to say, I'm going to venture to guess it was like another $4K. Remember the coaching certification, my first one was about $4K. I want to say it was anywhere from 4 to 6 months long. And I did my first coaching call with the woman, and I just had this weird feeling in the pit of my stomach. And at the time, I was super duper disconnected from my own intuition. And now I would know what that feeling was, and I would have never hired her. I would have never given her a penny of my money. I felt like she didn't really care to get to know me. I felt like she was talking over me. I don't want to say her name out loud. She's still out there doing business. But it was like her show. Let's say her name is Sally. Her name is not Sally, but let's say it was. It was the Sally show. Like Sally only cared about Sally and her image and making money. And she was a really, really great marketer. She did not actually care about me and my business and my success or the other people that she was working with. I could gather that from the calls. And there was just this really condescending tone when people would ask questions. Hi. When people pay you as a coach, they're going to ask you questions. They're going to need your help. They're going to need your support. And so there was that one-on-one call. I had this weird feeling in the pit of my stomach, and I didn't know what it was, so I ignored it. It was my intuition telling me to get my money and run. Thankfully, I think I had invested, gosh, I'm so glad I don't even remember the exact details now, because when this was going down, this was actually pretty traumatic, which is really sad because there's a lot of people who have like trauma from the coaching industry, which just is heartbreaking. And it makes such a bad name. It gives all of us such a bad name. Like the coaches who actually give an F, the coaches who actually care, who are really good at what they do and genuinely want to make a difference. Hi, it's me. Have we met? I'm Dani. I'm that coach. But there's also some people out there in the industry who are really great marketers. They're really good at making money. And once they get people in their programs, they drop their people. They're not actually good coaches. They don't actually care. And I'm not to freak you out. I don't know if you've invested once or never or like a million times like me. I want to say those are few and far between, but they do exist. Ugh. And it makes me so sad. I've heard over the last decade plus, I've heard way too many horror stories, and it really does break my heart. But where I'm going with this was with this particular coach, after our like first or second group call, I literally felt like I wanted to throw up at the end of like my body was responding so viscerally that I knew I could not stay in that program. And so I had sent her a text message and asked if we could get on the phone because I just was trying to figure out like what was going on. And this woman refused to get on the phone with me. And she proceeded to text me. Gosh, I wish I had this. I wish I would have saved it. Maybe it's in one of my old phones. She sent me a long, really rude, condescending text message that said something along the lines of like the summary of it is, I'm really sorry to see you quit and give up on yourself. Entrepreneurship's not for everybody. Like the energy was very like, don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you kind of a thing. Like that was the kind of faith-based coach she was. It was terrible. And I was so nervous to invest again after that. Like it was actually almost 2 years and I really needed help, but I was super scared to invest. So I didn't invest in business coaching for, again, another 18 months to 2 years, but I loved Landmark so much that I had found another company that was very similar to Landmark called Productive Learning. And it was more of like investing in understanding yourself. It was investing in leadership, skills and performance and mindset. So like little things that I could weave into my business, but it was really more about me as an individual, me as a person. And it was more of like the weekend seminars here and there. So you'd learn a lot. And it was a couple of $100, but it didn't feel like it was breaking the bank. So those were like easier investments for me to make. A very good friend of mine, many of you in my world know her. Her name is Jolie Dawn. And if you've heard her name recently, it's because her and I have partnered together in business. So she has her own brand, her own company called the Prosperity Queendom. And Jolie and I started our coaching businesses almost on the exact same day. It was really cool to get to see that happen. And we've sort of like bobbed and weaved in and out together, always just having so much love and support for one another. But there were some kind of last minute changes that were happening within one of her offerings a few years ago. And she was needing a master coach, like someone she could bring in alongside of her. And she had reached out to me and the timing of it worked out so perfectly. And so Jolie and I have been working together really, really closely within her brand, going now on 3 years. It's literally the dreamiest of all dream collabs and business partnerships. We had actually been talking about collaborating in some way, shape, or form since the beginning of us starting our businesses simultaneously over 10 years ago. And so it's been so perfect. And the interesting thing is I had worked for and with and within other people's brands like a freelance coach. A lot of people didn't know this, and it wasn't something I was necessarily keeping a secret per se. It was just I wasn't really marketing other people's businesses because I was working within their business, supporting them in their groups and their one-on-one clients, while also building my very own successful brand. My brand on its own is a 6-figure business. And so any freelance coaching back in the day was just a little bit of extra income. And really, when Jolie reached out to me, it was like me helping out a friend. I'm like, yeah, girl, I got you. You're my people. Your people are my people. We have very, very similar, if not identical, beliefs and values when it comes to heart-centered leadership, when it comes to the coaching industry. The exact same strategies that built her business are exactly what built my business. And so I could teach on those things in my sleep. So it worked out really well. But it was interesting because when Jolie had reached out to me, I vowed to myself that I was never going to partner with another coach ever again, because the other sort of like freelance things I was doing inside of the coaching industry, sort of silently, they never ended well. They didn't actually ever feel fully aligned. And so to this day, going on 3 years, it's the dreamiest partnership ever. It's so much fun. I absolutely love it. It's the easiest, most natural and aligned thing. And I get to work really closely on a weekly basis with one of my best friends in the entire world, someone who I love, someone who I admire, someone who my kids know. And it really is such a dream. But I'm bringing this up because I invested in a handful of Jolie's programs when she was getting started. It felt like she was always a step or two ahead of me. Like, I loved the idea of leading a group coaching program, but I had never done that. And she was leading group programs. And so I was wanting to learn about them. So I was investing in her programs, and it was amazing. Her very first program was called the Bliss Project, and no one else in the industry was doing group coaching programs. It was so cool to get to see her do this. And it was like $50 a month for 3 months. And it was just so cool. So it was a teeny tiny investment at the time. I mean, at the time, it probably felt like a lot to me. Looking back now, I'm like, oh my gosh, how cute are we? How cute is it that Jolie had a program that was $50 a month? And how cute am I that I invested in that? But Jolie had such a big role in my journey as a coach. Again, it always felt like she was a step or two ahead of me, and it worked out really beautifully because she'd say, hey, here's what I'm doing. Here's what's working. Here's what's not working. And I invested in her programs, and I invested in learning from her. And that was always, always, always money well spent. So after that, I finally decided that I was going to invest again. I was going to try official high-level business coaching after my really terrible experience with that one coach. And the only reason that I decided to go all in on the next coaching program was because it was referred to me by a very dear friend of mine who had gone through it and gotten the most incredible results. So this program, I don't think it exists anymore. It's called Big Impact University, and it was created by Shannon Law and Mark Granger, and they're a married couple, and they're so lovely. And Big Impact University, the goal behind this was teaching you how to use speaking and essentially storytelling as a way to attract your soul-aligned clients. And I absolutely loved this because if you know anything about me, you've probably heard me say that I'm not very tech savvy. And I had purchased small courses here and there and signed up for free workshops about different funnels and systems and software and things that all aired more kind of heavy on the tech side. And it like literally broke my brain. I hated it. I would be sitting in front of my computer with tears streaming down my face. And so when this opportunity was presented to me and I was like, wait, you mean I don't have to have any fancy tech funnels? All I have to do is create a signature process, get really crystal clear about who I'm serving, and then craft a signature talk and share that talk and speak as much as possible in all of the right places. And that will help me build my business. Like, sign me all the way up. And this was a huge investment, fam. There's a story behind this investment that I've shared many, many times. And I feel like I need to dedicate an entire podcast episode to it. But basically, there was it was a 2 or 3 day event in person. And I was super pumped. I had just moved from San Diego to Northern California. And this event was happening in Northern California. And again, one of my very good friends, I actually don't think she was there, but she had already gone through the program. She didn't share a whole lot of it with me other than it was amazing and she feels like it would be perfect for me. And so she wasn't physically there, but I felt her energy there. And a lot of people in the community knew her. And so they welcomed me with open arms. And just for context, there were probably 300 people in the room at this live event. So it was not like a tiny event. I was hanging on every single word they were saying the entire weekend. And it got to the part where they were inviting you to join their program, and they had these fancy slides up on the screen, and they were walking you through what's included and what the value is. And, it was like something insane, no exaggeration. They're like, it's worth $50,000. And I was like, okay, this is great, amazing. And this is crazy. And I don't know if I can do this. And then, it was like, but wait, there's more. They're amazing, very heart-centered, but also it was a sales pitch. It was very salesy. And they get to the end, and I want to say it was basically $12K. It might have been like $12,500. And I knew it was worth it, but I was like, there's literally no way. There's no way I can afford this. That was my very first thought. And all of the sudden, there was another voice that came through that I, to this day, claim was the voice of God, my own intuition, that said, you actually can't afford not to do this. You can't afford to continue spinning your wheels, being stuck in confusion, being stuck in inaction and overwhelm. So I'll save the story for another day because there's like so many other pieces. But long story short, I found a way to invest in that program. And to this day, it was one of the best investments that I ever made. And shortly after that, using and integrating and deploying all of these things that they taught me, and it finally felt like my business was picking up pace and getting some traction. And it felt so darn good until it felt like I hit a plateau. And funny enough, the same exact incredible friend who shared about Big Impact with me, she is an energy healer, and I love her and always have from the day that I met her. And I thought her work was really cool, but I didn't like fully understand it until, again, I hit the plateau in my business. I was doing all of the right things. Everything my coaches were telling me to do, I was doing the absolute most. I was getting out there. And at the time I had 2 little kids. I was working, honestly, like myself into the ground. And there was this moment that I had, again, we're going to have to turn these 2 pieces, Big Impact and my friend Jackie Beam, we're going to need to turn those into their own podcast episode. But there was a very distinct moment. Both of these 2 investments were like kind of fork in the road moments in not just in my business, but in my life. Like it was very crystal clear that something needed to change. And the thing that I knew I needed to do was extremely scary, but the thought of not doing it was even scarier. The thought of staying stuck, or the thought of giving up, or the thought of needing to walk away from my business and go back to a regular job, which would have just destroyed me. Like it would have had me die a slow death. That sounds so dramatic, but it's so true. And so I ended up investing in her program at the time. This one doesn't exist anymore. She has other amazing programs. It was called Energy Upgrade. And it was the first like multiple 4 figures. So it was several thousands of dollars. I want to say it was like maybe 4 or 5K. I'm adding all of this up as we go. It was the first time I invested in like real, true energy healing. And that freaking catapulted my business. It opened my eyes and my mind in a way that I did not even realize could ever be possible. And that is what had me get so excited about things like mindset and energy mastery, because without that, I was never going to get to where I wanted to go. I never would have had my first and then my second and then my third and now my 7th consecutive 6-figure year. I'm a strategy queen. I can do the thing. I can take the action. I'm super motivated. You tell me what to do. You tell me what to read. You tell me what to listen to. And what I didn't get until that moment was you can be taking all of the right actions, but if your energy and your mindset is not aligned with and on board with where you want to go, you are never going to get there. Or worse, if you somehow get there, you're going to get there and it's going to feel terrible. It's going to feel terrible. And you will have worked so hard to go in probably most likely the complete wrong direction of where you were meant to land. So that was a big investment. And that was one of the most life-changing investments. It like literally shifted the trajectory of every aspect of my life and of my business. Now, there were some smaller certifications after that. I invested in learning how to lead Sister Circle with an amazing woman by the name of Tanya Lynn. She's a speaker. She's an author. She's really made a name for herself in in-person communities and virtual communities online. She's up to so many amazing things. So I went through 2 levels of how to lead Sister Circle, and leading women in community and in sacred spaces, both online and in person, is one of my favorite things to do. So that was so incredibly helpful. I also really love angel cards and oracle cards. And so I signed up for a few different programs and certifications to not only learn how to read certain oracle decks, but also like being led and taught by the women who created the actual decks, which is really cool and really special. And I'm sure there's a handful of things in between there, but for several years, my business was really just rocking it. It was super duper consistent. And then I started to run into this experience that I didn't necessarily love. And what was happening was I was able to help my clients set their goals, address bits of fear here and there, identify limiting beliefs. But there was this experience where I could start to sense that my clients were needing more than what I was able to provide. Like I would even be able to pinpoint intuitively, like what was blocking them, what was like the energetic dynamic getting in the way of their goals and the beliefs stopping them, the programming, the conditioning. But I didn't know how to get rid of it. I didn't know how to help them move through it. I could identify it, but I didn't actually have the tools to help them move beyond that. And that was when I started exploring other types of healing modalities and certifications. And there was something that had been on my radar for a while known as NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming. And I explored a handful of different certifications, and there was just one. There's so many out there. Some of them are better than others. There's a few that I'm a raving fan for, and one that I am a big affiliate for, mostly because I've worked so closely with the founder. Again, if you've been in my world for any length of time, you probably know who I'm talking about. Shout out to Erin Nicole Porter. We're going to get to her in just a moment. So I ended up going through a certification called the Integrative Alchemy Practitioner Certification, IAPC for short. That was hands down one of the absolute best investments within my business. That community was insane. I met some women inside of that space who will be my lifelong best friends and sisters. I just adore the woman who hosted it. Her name is Lexi D'Angelo, and she led that certification for several years and then decided to close that down and sort of shift gears and evolve and pivot what she does in her business. So the Integrative Alchemy Practitioner Certification no longer exists out in the world, but it will forever, kind of cheesy but true, it will forever live inside of my heart. And that was close to a $10K investment, which is interesting because inside of IAPC, we got certified as practitioners of NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming, EFT, which is emotional freedom technique, clinical hypnotherapy, something known as time techniques, which I'm absolutely obsessed with and I use all the time, life and success coaching, as well as integrative alchemy, like Lexi's own brand of magic. A lot of times when women who lead or people who lead certifications, if they have their own modalities, that will be woven into the certification. So what's interesting about that is 6 different types of healing modalities, tools that you can use, transformational tools that you can use, and you can get certified. I mean, I was exploring certifications that were almost identical and they were like maybe 3K, 4K tops. But this is one of those things where like the only way I can describe it is I would go to the sales page of that certification and I would listen to the person leading it, hosting it, talking about it. And it was just like a snooze fest. I had no interest in learning from those individuals, but anytime Lexi was in front of me, I was enamored. I could not wait to learn from her. And so it's interesting because I basically paid 3 times more than what lots of other people were charging simply because of who I wanted to learn from. There's a word in that for somebody, guys. This is where it really comes down to. You can literally teach the same exact thing to a T that other people teach. You could say the same thing word for word, but who you are is what makes all of the difference. And you being you and infusing that into the work, even if it's exactly the same as what other people do, that in and of itself adds so much value. I walked away with so much. I was forever changed as a result of that certification, so much so that I ended up enrolling in the next level. So becoming a master practitioner of all of the different amazing things that I just shared with you. The prac level, practitioner and master prac level, that was just shy of a $20,000 investment. And that took me through, it was like about a year and a half. So not just a monetary investment, but a big investment in time. Now, the other thing that I want to share with you is that although the Integrative Alchemy Practitioner certification is like no longer in existence, there is one certification. There's a handful that I'm familiar with, but there's one that I'm a raving fan and top affiliate for. And it's, again, the certification hosted by a former mentor and dear friend of mine. Her name is Erin Nicole Porter, and her certification is QRE, which is the quantum ripple effect. Depending on when you're listening to this, if that's something you want to dive into, let me know. I'll share a link in the show notes. But the next cohort of QRE, the quantum ripple effect, where you get certified in all of the things I'm certified in, NLP, EFT, clinical hypnotherapy, time techniques. You also get certified in Reiki, in breath work, in different types of somatic work. It's really, really incredible and super comprehensive. 2 of the women in my world, 2 of my active clients right now just enrolled for the next cohort. And although I personally have not been through QRE, I have invested over $20,000 in working with Erin between her mastermind. I did a year-long mastermind with her. I've invested in one-on-one work with her, and I've gone to 2 retreats. If any of you remember my insane, iconic, life-changing, game-changing trip to Greece last year, that trip happened with Erin because of Erin. So, I mean, I've probably invested nearly $30,000 in different types of work with Erin. And because I've worked so closely with her and I know her so well, I can say that this woman is the real freaking deal. And I'm obsessed with her. And I just love sharing her work with the world. So quantum ripple effect, QRE, is where I send my people if they're interested in becoming coaches and they are interested in certifications and modalities very similar to what I use and what I weave into my work. So there's that. Gosh, I feel like there's so many other things. I listed off the biggest ones. I've listed off the certifications, the game-changing energetics, the things that really helped me to put myself and my business on the map. There's a few other people that I want to mention here. A good friend of mine, and she was a client for a long time. I'm going to have to send this to her. I haven't talked to her in some time. She's been doing her mom thing over there and moving with her family and super busy. And I've been doing my mom thing over here, super busy with my babes and also moving. We've both sold homes and sort of relocated. But her name is Jen Hempton, and she is amazing. And she's trained in all kinds of fantastic things. And she does a lot of work around parenting and mothering. And I had invested in her program called Liberate, which was specifically for mothers. And that was absolutely game changing. Again, I've made some really big investments in my health as well. Gosh, I've also made some really big investments in my health over the years. There's a macros coach who I love so much. Her name is Megan, but her accounts across social media are Nomadic Fitness. I got better results in my body, feeling tighter, leaner, stronger, sexier, more energized, healthier than ever before working with Megan at Nomadic Fitness. I'll pop her stuff in the comments below. I also went through a really incredible program. Another woman by the name of Jen, her business is Fit and Functional. And so it's a health and fitness program, but from a different lens, more from the lens of functional medicine. And so I did HTMA testing. I did gut and stool testing and got all kinds of results back and learned so much about my body and what my body was needing. And that was really incredible. So I'll share those pieces of information as well. It's so funny because those weren't even on my list here. There's other things on my list that I'm not necessarily going to dive into. There's one woman in particular who I've invested in probably more than anybody else, like again and again and again and again. Her name is Victoria Washington. I've invested in her courses for speaking, courses for sales. I was a part of her membership for a really long time. She's absolutely incredible. She's fun to follow. Her content is so edgy and so creative and so innovative. I really love learning from her. And I've also worked with a handful of different types of energy healers, intuitive energy healers who use different forms of mediumship, who use emotion code and body code. I just rehired one of my favorite energy healers today, actually. I'm so excited about this. There's a woman by the name of Chrissy Papetti, who I am currently working with. We're going on our second full year of working together. We've actually worked on and off together for many, many years. She was one of my coaches inside of the Integrative Alchemy Practitioner Master's certification, and I fell in love with her. I'm so glad that we connected there. She has been such a game changer. All of the work that we've done together since then, like I've hired her one-to-one. It's all been, like I just said, one-to-one work together. And she is an expert in so many things. One of the things that she's very well versed in is the gene keys. If you're not familiar with the gene keys, go check it out. But I've really loved being supported and seen by Chrissy. I feel like I will rehire Chrissy every year until the end of time. I can't imagine not having her in my corner. Just the level of support, the way she sees me, the way that she gets me is absolutely incredible. And then all roads lead back to the Integrative Alchemy Practitioner certification. There's another incredible woman by the name of Kelsey Kerslake. And Kelsey and I actually met in IAPC and we were partnered up for different techniques. Kelsey, shortly after we graduated from the Integrative Alchemy Practitioner certification, ended up hiring me as her speaking coach to help her prepare for a really big event, something known as the Alt Summit. And after that, I ended up hiring Kelsey, and we've worked on and off over the years together. She is just a whiz when it comes to all things business strategy. And I also invested earlier this year in a life coaching program for moms, and it's with a coach I've been following for years and years and years. We actually met at an in-person event. Gosh, I think we were both moms at the time, like probably exactly 10 years ago. And we both had teeny tiny babies, and we've been connected for a really long time. And it's been so fun to sort of bob and weave. Her name's Sierra. I've really loved learning from her. And after graduating, becoming her, I'm now part of her ongoing program called The Council. And it's just a group of really amazing moms who are doing really big things together. And I am in so many different types of spaces with so many different types of women, but this is the first time I've ever been in a space like this. I want to say like high level, like the caliber of women in this community is next level. And the fact that our common thread is motherhood and how we desire to show up and how we desire to do motherhood and marriage differently is one of my favorite things about it. So those are some of the big ones. Holy cannoli. I didn't even get through all of them. And I think that this is now going to end up being our longest podcast episode ever. And there were so many other, I jokingly say that I'm a course collector. Again, the second time today, 1-3 sacral manifesting generator here in the house. My profile lines, the 1-3, means that I absolutely love learning. I love researching. The sacral part of me is like when I get lit up by something, I'm meant to follow it. So I lost track of this. Yeah, we're creeping up to like 150K here. I stopped typing things into the calculator. I didn't even finish telling you about all the programs, but those are some of the most impactful ones. I hope that you hearing about the all things investing today was fun and helpful for you. I hope that me sort of peeling back the curtain behind what my journey has looked like what I've said yes to, the things that I have loved learning, the things that have had the biggest impact for me. I'm really hoping that it created an aha moment for you. Maybe this is an opportunity for you to look at your own journey. I must say, it was really cool to, like, right now, I'm staring at this list of all of these things that I've said yes to. There's so many, and this isn't even the end all be all. And I love this. This excites me. I'm feeling activated by remembering who I am, and that I'm so willing to go all in on myself and all in on this journey. And whatever all in looks like for you, that's what I want for you. I want you to know what it feels like to have unwavering belief in yourself, to really truly know with unshakable faith and certainty that you are the best thing that you could ever invest in. Go all in on yourself. I love you so much. I will post as many links and resources associated with what I mentioned today. As always, if there is anything you have questions about, if you want to start a conversation with me on any of the social media platforms, the two where I hang out the most are Instagram and Facebook, I want to encourage you to send me a DM, ask me the questions, tell me what landed for you. I love you so much. I think I already said that, but it's worth saying a couple times, and I'll see you next time.